Hey everyone, welcome to another video. As you can see, we've changed the setup slightly. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better for these videos because I've brought out the microphone again. We'll see how that goes. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read during the month of May. We're right at the end now, so I don't think, based on what I'm reading currently, I'm going to finish anything more in May. So it's a good time to sit down and talk about them. I've got my iPad here using the Story Graph, which is an alternative to Goodreads. I think it's much better than Goodreads, and that's what I use to track all of my reading. And yeah, it's great. So I'm going to go through and talk about the books from the start of the month to the end of the month. Some of these books I've actually spoken about already on the channel, either in videos dedicated to them or in the vlogs. So if you want to go back and see those and see my thoughts in a little bit more detail, you can. So the first book I read this month, or at least finished this month, was The Anatomy of Fascism by Robert O. Paxton. And basically what this book does is it takes like an analytical approach to trying to define fascism. That's basically the entire book. The conclusion defines fascism. And the rest of the book basically goes through and it builds up a model within which we can understand fascism, so the stages that fascism goes through, and how we can include and exclude various regimes from the term fascism. So I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was really interesting and really helpful in clarifying my thoughts around fascism and how to understand it. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely it's worth a read. It's only about 300 pages, so it doesn't take too long. And it's also not too deep and technical, and you don't get too bogged down while reading it. The next book that I read was All Hell Let Loose by Max Hastings. That is published in the US under the title Inferno, and it is a single volume history of the Second World War. It is kind of similar to what Anthony Beevor does. He's got a single volume on the war, and then also a bunch of other books about different aspects of the war. I thought this was a really interesting approach. It looked at kind of facets of the war and tracked them alongside the narrative of how the battles went, whereas Beevor's takes more of a direct battlefield approach. So it discussed really interesting things like the experience of women, the experience of the soldiers, the experience on the home front, various different things. And it probably gave you a better understanding of the larger political issues and strategy and discussions that happened. So that one's really good. It is a little bit longer, so it is something that you'll have to dedicate a little bit of time to, but definitely worth the read if you're looking for something that's a single volume history like that. The next book that I read was JFK Volume 1, and that I've actually got it up on the shelf somewhere. So that is Fredrik Logevall's first volume of his biography of John F. Kennedy, and it covers 1917 to 1956. So basically from JFK's birth up until just after the convention, where he didn't get selected to run as vice president, but he does decide at that point to run for president. So basically all the discussion of his presidency is going to be left to the second volume, and this covers his childhood, his time at school, his time at Harvard, how his father being the ambassador to the court of St. James's affects him and his views on foreign policy, and then his tours around Europe prior to the outbreak of the Second World War. He's in Germany just as the war is breaking out. He goes to Italy, he goes all around Europe, and so he gains a view of Europe that's perhaps unique to what people who remain in America see. So we get to see his development the development of his thinking around foreign policy. We then get to see him go off to war in the Pacific, and then come back and run for the House and spend time in the House, and then spend time in the Senate as well. So I thought that was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the second volume. It is quite long, and you do get stuck in the foreign policy discussion for quite a while, but I don't think it's a reason not to read the book. Next, I read The Premonition, a Pandemic Story by Michael Lewis. This is, of course, Michael Lewis's book on 2020, and he discusses, he does his normal thing. He takes various characters and who are somehow related, in this case to the US public health system, and uses them as a way to understand why things happened the way they happened, why the response was the way it was, etc., etc. I don't think it was Michael Lewis at his best, but it certainly was an interesting book. There were some interesting sort of mental models to understand the public health response and why certain responses worked and other ones didn't, and also just how the system itself is constructed in such a way that some things worked and some things didn't. It is very short. I read it in a weekend, so if you're interested, pick it up for sure. But it's probably not like going to be in my top 10 books this year. And then the final one was Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty by Patrick Radden Keefe. So this one it's one of those journalistic books, similar to like The Big Short or like those types of books where basically the Sackler family own a pharmaceutical company called Purdue Pharma, I think it's called, and they create the drug called OxyContin. They manufacture and sell it, and OxyContin is pretty much accepted to be the drug that caused the opioid crisis in the US. And the book basically examines how the Sackler family and Purdue were responsible, and how they marketed the drug, how they kind of manipulated regulators like the FDA, how they took the drug and marketed it to doctors and pushed them to prescribe it more and more, and how much they knew about the crisis they were causing long before they ever acknowledged it. It dragged a little bit at the end, like it didn't feel like it sort of rounded out very well. A lot of the detail was in the like sort of middle third of the book, or probably middle third. The first third of the book was setting up how the Sackler family came to be in the prominent position that they were. So that was very interesting. It just wasn't directly related to what the book was about, but needed to be in there. The sort of middle third talked about more directly about OxyContin, the development of it, the marketing of it, and then also how the Sackler family like sort of put itself into the art world, with their wing at the Louvre and the Metropolitan Museum of Art and all of those things. So that was very interesting. And then the final third just kind of, it follows the more recent legal battles and stuff, but kind of not super interesting. Just from like a craft standpoint, it could have been finished better. But I found the book very interesting. So yeah, definitely worth a read if that's something you're interested in. It's one of those ones that like they come out from time to time where it's this like tell-all story about some family or some person, and I find that quite interesting. So yeah, if you're into that, definitely give it a read. So those are all the books. So I'll give you my stats, because this is something the Storygraph can do that I really like, is it gives you stats about your reading month by month. And I think that they're planning to do different time periods as well. So during the month of May, I read 5 books, obviously, which I just told you. And if I can click, I read those 5 books was 2,886 pages. So that was the best month I've had pretty much this year, apart from January when I was off work and I read a ton in January. But yeah, that was probably the best month I've had. I did a lot of reading, got into a really good routine. I've got this set up now, so that's been really, really helpful, being able to have somewhere I can go and read every night. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found some books you might be interested in. Let me know in the comments what you've been reading. I'd love to get some suggestions. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.